Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talks with the ARC Trust webinar series. My name is Sarah Geis, and I am the Senior Director of Engagement for the ARC Master Trust, a program of the ARC of Indiana. We want to thank you all for watching our webinar series and want to remind you that all of the webinars in our series are available to watch on our website at any time. To view the other videos in our series, you can go to thearctrust.org and click on the Webinar and Videos button in the banner. In today's webinar, we will be talking about third-party special needs trusts, including how they can be funded, how one can be established, and important things to consider when determining how a third-party special needs trust will function. In one of our other webinars, we've discussed some of the basics about special needs trusts. To recap, a special needs trust is a way for individuals receiving government benefits like SSI or Medicaid the opportunity to save money without impacting their benefit eligibility. The person for whom the trust is established is known as the trust beneficiary. For certain government benefits, there are resource limits or asset limits on the amount of financial assets a person can have and remain eligible for those benefits. A special needs trust is shielded, meaning that the funds that are in the special needs trust are not considered a financial asset when determining Medicaid, SSI, or other government benefit eligibility. Special needs trusts are a way to better an individual's quality of life. The benefits that the individual receives will still be used to provide for the care and support that they are designed to. A special needs trust can then supplement or pay for additional things that are going to increase the trust beneficiary's quality of life. There are rules set forth by Medicaid, Social Security, and other government agencies that a special needs trust needs to follow to make sure that the trust does not impact the beneficiary's benefit eligibility. One of the primary rules is that the trust can only be used for the primary sole benefit of the beneficiary, and that the trust is managed by a trustee. There are two main types of special needs trusts, first party and third party. And today we are going to be talking about third party special needs trusts. A third party special needs trust is a way for any third party, such as a parent, sibling, friend, or other family member, to be able to provide financial support and resources to an individual receiving government benefits in a way that will not impact that person's benefit eligibility. The funds that are going into the third-party trust do need to come from someone who is not the intended trust beneficiary, which is why the trust is referred to as third party. There is not a familial requirement to establish the third-party trust. The person or individuals who choose to establish a special needs trust for the benefit of somebody else are typically referred to as the donors. And again, the person for whom the trust is established for is known as the beneficiary. Often, third-party special needs trusts are a way for people to ensure that their loved one is taken care of after they've passed away. It can bring peace of mind knowing that there are funds set aside to ensure for the care and well-being for that person without impacting the government benefits that that person might have. Medicaid, Social Security, and other benefits will still be used in the way that they are designed to support that person. And the third-party trust can then be used to provide for other goods or services that that trust beneficiary might need. A third-party trust is typically established as a part of someone's estate planning, where funding will be deposited into the trust after the passing of the donor. If you have multiple individuals who would be considered donors for the special needs trust, the trust could have funds come into the trust at different times, and this is perfectly fine. There are times where it could be beneficial for the donor to fund the trust during their lifetime. One of these situations is if the donor needs to become eligible for Medicaid benefits themselves. For the donor to be able to do this, one of the factors that they will need to consider is that the donor needs to ensure that they then now meet the financial eligibility requirements for Medicaid. To prevent candidates from simply giving away their money or their resources to qualify for Medicaid, federal government has implemented what's known as the look-back period. This is a set period of time prior to the individual's Medicaid application, during which Medicaid reviews all of the financial transactions that the individual has made. Through the Omnibus Reconciliation Act of 1993, or otherwise known as OBRA 93, parents can fund a third-party special needs trust for the benefit of their child, and those funds would not be considered towards their Medicaid look-back period. If a parent put all of their financial resources in a third-party trust for their disabled child, it is possible that they could become faster eligible for Medicaid. Another reason to potentially fund the trust is that it could better the current relationship between the donor and the intended beneficiary. Donors who are considering establishing a third-party trust are sometimes the ones who are currently financially supporting the beneficiary. This can put a strain on the relationship. By funding the trust, instead of the beneficiary going to the donor directly, they can work with the trustee on their financial needs, and in that relieve stress on the donor-beneficiary relationship. If you think it might be a good idea to fund a third-party trust during your lifetime, it is important to remember that once the funds are placed in the trust, they must stay in the trust and can only be used for the beneficiary's benefit. One of the rules that shields the funds in a special needs trust from counting as a resource is that the funds, once placed in the trust, are considered irrevocable. A third-party trust can be funded through a variety of sources. A donor can choose to include the trust as a part of their will or estate planning. In those instances, the donor might name what percentage of their financial assets go into the trust, or if there are specific financial assets that they would want to go into the trust in full. The donor could also name the trust as the beneficiary of an existing life insurance or retirement policy. Certain third-party trusts can also hold physical assets like homes or property. The funds or assets that a donor intends to go into the trust must name the trust as the beneficiary, not the person for whom the trust is being established. This allows for those assets to still be considered third party and not the asset of the individual for whom the trust is established. If you do name the individual directly at the time of funding, those assets become the assets of the individual and can no longer be placed in the third-party special needs trust. For example, let's say that I am the donor of a third-party special needs trust for my friend John Doe. I want a certain percentage of my estate to go into a trust for him. However, in my will, instead of naming the third-party trust for John Doe, I have instead stated that the funds are to go to John Doe. If my will is executed and the wording stays this way, then the funds become the asset of John Doe and cannot be put in the third-party trust that I have established. So what does naming a trust look like? The trust you are establishing will have a specific name, and you can work with your attorney or a pooled trust organization on what the name of that trust is and how to reference it correctly as a part of your estate planning. In a will, you might be specifying which assets from your estate are to go into the trust. In a life insurance policy or 401k or other retirement policy, you can assign the trust as a beneficiary. There might be steps with the company that holds the policy on naming the trust that you will need to follow in order to do so. Trusts can pay for a wide variety of expenses. They can pay for regular routine expenses, such as regular monthly payments for some utilities, transportation, medical expenses, or others. A special needs trust can also pay for things that we might consider the fun things in life: entertainment, hobbies, travel, vacation expenses. The items that this table reflects are only some of the options that a special needs trust can pay for. By no means is this list all-inclusive. The government benefits that a person is receiving can also impact what a trust can pay for. If the trust beneficiary receives SSI or supplemental security income, their trust could be hesitant to pay for shelter expenses. Social Security defines this as rent or a mortgage payment, basic utilities like water, gas, electric, heat, trash, sewage, property taxes, and homeowners or renters insurance. Social Security says that an individual's SSI payment should go towards paying for shelter expenses. If a trust were to pay for shelter expenses for an individual who receives SSI, it could cause a reduction of what the beneficiary receives from SSI by a maximum of 1/3. This is called an in-kind support and maintenance reduction. It does not impact the individual's SSI eligibility, but the amount that they receive could be decreased. Some individuals with SSI who have special needs trusts find that the benefit of the trust paying for shelter expenses outweighs the reduction, and they might work with the trustee to have their trust pay for these necessities. When you're establishing the third-party trust, one of the conversations you'll have is what would happen to any remaining funds in the trust upon the passing of the trust beneficiary. The donors of a third-party trust have say on who they would want any remaining funds to go to. You could choose the remaining funds to go to other family members, friends, religious organizations, nonprofit organizations, or a combination of any of the above. Sometimes we'll hear from families that they believe that if funds go into this trust, the money goes back to the state. This is true for first-party special needs trusts. However, in a third-party special needs trust, the donors of this trust retain 100% say on where those funds go to, and there is no provision for Medicaid estate recovery. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. Let's say that given what you've learned or after thinking it over, you want to go ahead and establish a third-party trust for someone. Here are some questions you might want to consider as you work with a trust, a pooled special needs trust, or an attorney in getting that trust established. You'll want to know what assets are going into that trust. Are you including property like a home or a condo, or maybe cash assets, investments, or stocks? Or are you hoping to include a combination of these assets? A question that individuals might have when establishing a trust is how much funding is enough? You as the donor will probably have the best understanding of what that looks like. Here are important questions to consider when you think about how a trust can be used to help support the beneficiary's quality of life. Third-party special needs trusts can only include funds from third-party individuals and not funds that are considered owned by the trust beneficiary. It seems simple, but it's always helpful to check, especially if you or someone else has a savings plan already established for the beneficiary. For example, let's say that a grandparent has set up a 529 college savings plan for the beneficiary. Though that policy is for the beneficiary, the policy is not immediately considered the beneficiary's asset. There are age limits to 529 plans, and there could be a time frame for when that plan does become the asset of the beneficiary. In this instance, while it's still not considered the beneficiary's asset, the 529 plan could be moved into a third-party trust. A different example is a Uniform Gift to Minors Act account or Uniform Transfer to Minors Act account. This is sometimes abbreviated as UTMA or UGMA. These accounts are savings options for a child that can be managed by an adult when the child is under the age of 18. Unlike a 529 plan, the funds that are in a UGMA or UTMA account are always considered the asset of the beneficiary. If a family member establishes an account like this, the funds that are deposited are immediately considered the beneficiary's asset. A UGMA or UTMA funds could not be put into a third-party trust. This would also be a good time to ask family members if they've included your loved one, who's the intended trust beneficiary, as a part of their will or estate already. If they have, and they are named directly, then those funds would become the asset of the beneficiary upon that family member's passing. A special needs trust can have multiple donors, and it is possible to have multiple donors included in the same as a part of their estate. So multiple people can have the same trust listed as a part of their estate planning. If you have friends or family members who already named the individual you're establishing a trust for in their estate planning, you could let them know that you have established a third-party trust, and it might be beneficial for them to name that third-party trust as a part of the estate planning. If you think you have the answers to those questions or answered enough to feel that you're ready to get started, then it's time to establish the trust. To start establishing a special needs trust, you can choose to set one up privately with the aid of an attorney. And if you do, you would also need to name the trustee. If you choose a pooled trust organization, the trustee would be that nonprofit organization. The attorney or organization will be able to assist you in ensuring that you have the language in your will or estate that names the trust, or if you are including a policy, that you have the correct language to name the trust as the beneficiary. Thank you all again for watching, and we hope that you have found this informative. If you have questions or would like to learn more, please feel welcome to visit our website or give us an email or call. You are also welcome to join us on social media to learn more.